Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with Eerie Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, Eerie Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the extraordinary is just a click away. Dare to discover.
What's out there? What creates the shadows in the corners or the creatures of the dark? Who are those on the other side? What do they have to say? This is the Gateway Podcast. This is not your normal style of paranormal talk radio. Brought to you live from United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans.
Welcome to the Gateway Podcast. I'm your host, CL Thomas. How you guys doing out there? I'm not sure why this is small. Look how small this is. I'm not sure how to fix that. Hold on one second. It seems like every time I come on here, there's something different that isn't there. Let's see how to fix this. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if I can pull up my guest. Hey, Jay, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm having technical issues here.
Yeah. Oh,
there it is.
there you go.
Let's see.
There you go. All right.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Yeah,
I didn't want to exactly pull you up right away, but I was trying to fix the screen here. So
no, that's totally fine. I understand. I used to have StreamYard, and I had similar issues, so I can relate.
It just seems like there's always something with it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So how are you doing, listeners? The podcast before mine was the Sean Kelly show, Into the Night. He's always got something great going on. He just played a video of what they did a long time ago. He had a group in Pittsburgh, and they used to do a whole production, and they, I think it was called Fear Project, something like that. But it's a pretty good show, and he played an episode of that. For you guys who don't know Sean Kelly, he has another show that comes on Sunday nights. It's really good. He's a really great guy, and he's a good host. I really recommend you guys get on there and check him out. And there's also a lot of other good guests out there, too, on this channel. You're listening to United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans. So tonight, it seems like everybody has a story with the paranormal. You're not in the paranormal unless you have a story. Some of us start way earlier, some of us much later. It doesn't matter. Everybody has a story. So Jay Hill from, what is it, Studio 6 Productions? Is that the name
Actually,
of it?
it's Encompass Media now.
Yeah, so you changed it.
Yeah, I did change it. Studio 6 was great. I mean, I had, great 4 years of it. And it was time to move on to different. And so I I changed it to Encompass Media. I've got some different people that are associated with it now. And I got some new shows coming out on it. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm very honored to have you on the show. I've been I wanted to reach out to you for the last couple of years to be on Small Town
Mhm.
Tales, but
Yeah,
I just never made that happen for some reason. So
everything happens for a reason. So
I'm
yeah,
honored to have you here.
thank you so much.
I'm not sure where you're located. I'm in Las Vegas. The weather today in Las Vegas is a little bit breezy. It's kind of cold. We've had some weather roll in. It was warm. And
I live in Wisconsin, so I know the cold.
how cold is
Yeah.
it there right now?
45.
45 degrees.
Hmm.
That's daytime, sun up, midday
Yeah,
temperature is
yeah.
41.
It wasn't too bad today. It was like I think it was low 50s, but I think tonight it'll probably dip down to maybe 30s. So
That's not too bad. It's not in the negatives, right?
no, but we had 77-degree weather last week, and then 2 days later we got 3 inches of snow. So
I just don't know if I can live that far north. So,
yeah, it's great. I love living up north just because of the fact that uh I love the trees. I love the forests up here. It's we've got some really nice pines up here, some really tall pines, and it's just beautiful.
Joe Fox says, hello, Joe. Or he says, hello, Jay. He says hi to me
Hello.
too. Joe Fox is a um he always comes on here and listens to the show, and he listens to Sean Kelly and a couple other people on our
Hmm.
broadcast. Speaking of trees, I was at the Redwood Forest just this past weekend. Now, if there is a such thing as Bigfoot and elementals and whatever else out there, skinwalkers, whatever, it has to live in the Redwood Forest. It's unbelievable how big these
Hmm.
trees are.
Right. I mean, they're kind of like an anomaly in themselves. So.
It's amazing. And a park ranger kind of gave me the skivvy on these trees. So apparently they're really slow growing. So when you see really big trees, they're close to 2,000 years old, and
Wow.
they're monstrously big, right? They're like
Hmm.
a couple of stories high, whatever. But
Hmm.
you know that the root system only grows up to 12 inches deep.
Right.
So that massive structure, and what they do is, and I find this interesting, and there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. Their root system kind of clings on to each other, so they always grow in groves. And so when they do that, they intertwine and they kind of support each other. I find that
Hmm.
really interesting. So if you relate that to society, I feel like you really do need other people in your community for it
Hmm.
to sustain itself.
Right.
So the reason I brought that up is because there's a lot of stuff happening in the paranormal community right now, which is really sad. So,
It is.
but anywho, so Jay, to get us started, why don't you tell us about you and how you got into the paranormal?
Well, um, it's not so much that I got into the paranormal. Basically, when people ask me, you know, when did you start following the paranormal and whatnot, and I always say that it's not that I followed the paranormal; it's the paranormal followed me. So it's basically since I was little, and yeah, I mean, I've had lots of different experiences when I was growing up. I saw my first full body apparition when I was 16, I think. Yep. And after that, it was kind of, I was into it before. Um, but having that experience was kind of solidified, you know, uh, kind of what I wanted to pursue. Um, my first book, I love to read, and I used to read a lot when I was in grade school. And the first book that I read I was in third grade, and I found a book called Ghosts by Daniel Cohen, and it was a blue cover. and I remember it like it was yesterday. I read that from cover to cover, and I loved every ounce of it, and that really kind of got me really started into enjoying more reading, and I would read more of the paranormal type books and stuff like that, and um, yeah, so that's kind of how it kind of got started. But as I got older, my life was, being a teenager and, partying and, doing dumb things. And, you know, I just, the paranormal was always around. And because of who I am now, because the gifts that I have and how far I've come over the years, I didn't realize that, um, the paranormal and the spirit, like my spirit guides and spirits and all that, were always talking with me. Um, I would when I was little, even when I was a teenager, I was always, there would be moments where I would feel kind of, you get those, like if you have not really goosebumps, but you're kind of like tingly all over. And there'd be times where those would just come out of nowhere. Like I would like what I attribute to that was actually there was a spirit or something around me, and I didn't realize it then. I kind of know the difference now, but I really, um I would stand in a room and hear a room full of people, and they're all whispering to each other or talking lowly, but like quietly, but you could still hear them, and it's kind of like in a distance. I would have moments like that probably quite often, and it really made me kind of feel odd and feel different, and I don't know how to describe it. I haven't really had too many of those experiences as of late. I think I had one a couple months ago, but it's more welcoming now. It doesn't. Back then it kind of freaked me out, but it doesn't really. Not much of anything really freaks me out from what I've been through. So, but yeah.
So many people say that they say that they were freaked out their first time. That wasn't the case for me, but a lot of people say that. Did you reach out to anyone?
No,
About
no, I don't. Back then, I mean, I have three sisters, and one of them is a year older than I am, and we're the only two in the family of siblings that have red hair. And my mother had, dishwater blonde hair. My dad had black hair. We get our hair from our grandmother, who is Irish, and that's my dad's mother. So, and plus the fact that my family, my mom and dad had my sister and I later in life. And so, along with that, I know that my sister has her own gifts, and she doesn't quite admit it, but when we were younger, we used to feed off each other, and we could kind of tell if we were was odd or whatever. Um, we both would kind of look at each other and and realize there's something there. You know what I mean? And so it's having experiences like that, and having somebody like my sister being close to me. I didn't really have to reach out to anybody because she was always there with me, and we used to, do a lot of stuff together, hang out, and even though that we were mortal enemies because we were siblings, excuse me, but we still had that commonality, that connection.
Did
So
you guys ever reach out to like a parent or anything like that?
my mother thought it was, um my mom didn't believe in ghosts. My mom didn't believe in any of that stuff. Um, Never really talked to my dad about it, but I know that that's where I get my gifts from, is from my dad. And so later in life, when we were 16, when I was 16, when we moved in this house, actually the town that I live in now there's a house downtown that's where I saw the first full body apparition. We first moved into that house, and me and my sister both kind of looked at each other and knew immediately there was something there. And I didn't remember what I said, but my mother and my father were behind me when we were walking in. And I remember my mother turning to my father and saying, "Do not get them started." And it didn't really register till the years later. It's like, okay, what was my mother talking about? Well, my dad also could sense all that stuff, and she knew that, but she didn't entertain any of that stuff. She didn't believe in it. She didn't, kind of like, my wife now doesn't believe or doesn't entertain any of that stuff, so, which is fine, to each his own. But
So, did you say your wife doesn't believe in that?
nope, she doesn't like any of it. She doesn't. I don't discuss it with her. I don't. Yeah, she just would rather not
The
entertain.
reason why I ask is because it seems like the paranormal, like I've dated a lot of people, and the minute you mention anything paranormal, they kind of run the opposite way. And it kind of ruins relationships a lot.
No, we have a very strong root in Christ and Christianity. You know what I mean? So I mean, we have that foundation. Just because she doesn't necessarily believe what I believe in that sense, and doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, or doesn't mean that she's negative about it all the time or something. It's just the fact that I, out of respect, that I don't discuss it with her, because it's something that scares her. I think it's something that she doesn't quite understand or know about. So, which most people who don't know or understand, they're kind of afraid of it, the fear of it, So.
So you went on to start your studio.
Mm-hmm.
You have a paranormal podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I've
got like 3 of them.
Did you have a TV show too at one time?
Do I have a what?
Did you have a TV show or something like that at one time as well?
No, no, it's just been podcasts. I would do live investigations sometimes, but never a TV show.
Okay. So your investigations, tell me what you did with those.
Basically, I used to do the like the mediumship walkthroughs. The other host that I had, my friend Kelly Schaefer from the Cemetery Files that we just ended last year. We would go on investigations, and we would, I would do the walkthroughs and try to pick up what was there, and she would have the information to verify a lot of that stuff. And that's what I do, and I'm part of her team, which is K2 Paranormal Research in Tennessee. That's where they're based out of. And so when they go to a haunted location, a supposed haunted location, they will chime me in on the phone, or like this, and I'll do a walkthrough with them, and then give them what I see and what I feel. And she has her researchers either verify that and whatnot. And it's been pretty successul. I've done that quite a few times. I've done it with another guest, a friend of mine, Taryn Kerper from oh my gosh, Paranormal Brew. I did that with her. She chimed me in on the phone when she was down in Gettysburg, and I was giving her the details of what I was seeing and this and that, and the verification was all there. And so I enjoy doing that. I enjoy helping paranormal teams, So I per se don't really investigate anymore. Just I gave up the team that I had years ago. Um, I couldn't keep enough people here because they all moved away. So, and plus the fact that I wanted to focus on my podcast. So,
Got it. So, what are some of the things that you have found in your spiritual journey with the paranormal? Like, has there been anything that specifically changed you in some way or another?
it's basically I'm more awake now to my spirituality than I've ever been. Um, talking about if you want to talk about the pivotal moment, excuse me, that I had with the paranormal was like when I had spoken with you before about what the devil's plans were for me. And
What the devil's plans were for you?
yeah, I was not, let's put it this way. I mean, I wasn't always a Christian. And so I basically, not that I didn't believe in God or whatnot, but I wasn't, when I was younger, I wasn't always the nicest person, and I was kind of an ass. And I would drink, do drugs, party, just be irresponsible, and this and that. And when I was younger, the drugs were really taking a hold of me. And somebody said that I should go see this therapist, so to speak. And I did. And this guy was like, I can't help you, but I know who can. And sent me to a Baptist minister who I thought was off his rocker. And basically explained it, where I was at. And I was kind of doing the devil's bidding. And it was, something I needed to change. And I did. I accepted Christ, and I wasn't, not that I didn't believe it, but I needed proof. And so when I asked, I said, can you feel me from my toes to my head? And this sensation started at my feet and went all the way out my top of my head. I was sold, and then that was after that evening. That's when I had, I was actually staying in living with a girl at the time, that the house was severely haunted. And I really, even before I would, I kind of would walk through this house because I got a weird feeling about it, and I would see visions of very gruesome images of death and this and that. And I just wasn't something that I didn't quite know what to expect. But actually, so we lived there for a while, and then that night after I had my come to my Jesus moment, that night, I was laying on my back, and there was a heavy feeling like something sitting on my chest, and I could feel this hot breath in my face. And I heard clear as day is, how could you do this to me? I own you. Do you think you're going to get away with this? And I was terrified. I was literally terrified. I was frozen.
Do you think that
And
was some kind of negative entity?
yeah, well, it was. If I put any money on it, it was probably the one demon that was probably at that time, before that time, that was controlling my life since I was a little kid. You know what I mean? That was that was influencing me to
So this was like an attachment.
probably, but I would beckon it was pretty close to the Dark One himself, because this entity was telling me, yeah, we're gonna kill you, or we're gonna take your firstborn child, you're gonna, just a bunch of different things. And I got thrown on the floor. I got up and I got back into bed, and um, instantly I passed out, and I was dreaming. I was dreaming, and there was somebody kept saying that your son or whatever is in the hospital. He's not going to make it. Da, da, da. And that to me was terrifying in itself. And that I woke up, and I wasn't quite the same after that, but I basically knew where I was heading, and I knew what I had to do to change, and I did. And I give the credit to God for where I'm at today, because it's not, you know, through me. And I try to help people and try to inspire people, and even with my gifts and whatnot. And you know, I I'm just a messenger. And yeah, so people don't quite understand that, I may be Christian, but I'm not a Bible thumper. I'm not, I don't go out in the street and preach, and I don't do any of that stuff. Um, I have my own relationship with Christ, and I have um, my own way of that God has blessed me with gifts that I'm able to help spiritually people, or people who have passed. So a lot of people don't quite understand how that can actually coexist, but it does. It's not, death isn't always black and white, and people like to think that it is. And you can believe what you want, but I know what I've experienced, and I know, you know um all the things that I've experienced are legit. And so yeah, so the paranormal basically to me has, after that moment and after being confronted like that, and I knew that there were things in my life that were going to change, but it took a long time, because I still wanted to go back to my old ways. I still wanted to get, I still had that influence. I still was putting myself in that position to be bad. You know what I mean? And I had to learn from all those mistakes over and over again until I can get away from those, which a lot of people don't seem to understand, that sometimes you have to repeat the same mistake until you actually get it.
Would you say that your life was in a way haunted before you made all the positive changes?
Yes. Oh yeah. When I was real little, I had I used to have nightmares. Most kids have nightmares, but I had a particularly one nightmare, not always in the same space, but different spaces. And it was always a man's voice that said, um, I'm coming after you. And I would always try to run away. And of course, in your dream, I mean, you're running in slow motion, and you can't, run, or you're running the opposite direction towards whatever. And there's been times where this entity in my dream had got a hold of me. And when he grabbed, the one time he did grab me, I saw what his hand looked like. I saw what his arm, his wrist, and his hand, and it was kind of scaly, kind of um,
Like
gross.
reptilian.
Yeah, yeah, and it was just, yeah, and I could feel that pressure. And he would say, "I got you now," and then I would wake up, and I had those dreams for a few years. And you know, So do I believe that Christianity is the answer to these issues? You have to kind of do a little soul searching for that. If something like like Christianity or having a relationship with Christ is something that is where you are comforted by, or that you feel, you know, peace by, you know what I mean, or something that you should, then that's probably something you should follow. I don't think that Christianity per se is the be all end all, because there's a lot of different religions that basically kind of, you know, lead to the same source, and a lot of people don't quite understand that. And i I just think that there's so much more out there in the aspect of quote religion, you know, than people realize. You know, it's kind of naive, in my opinion. It's kind of naive to think that one religion would trump everything else. I mean, maybe that's blasphemous, but but if you look at all the other people with all these different religions who claim that their religion is the one and only one, you know what I mean? So it makes you
Yeah.
think, you know,
It's
so
interesting because everyone across the world says that, but yet everyone believes in a higher power, which
right,
is interesting, you know.
right,
So who's to say that that higher power just really isn't the same version of God that
right.
people believe in?
Hmm.
So Michelle says, how are you and Reese feeling? Reese is doing better. She's still having a hard time walking. That's my golden retriever, Jay.
Mm.
She's been having some issues, and she collapsed about a week and a half ago.
Oh
And
no.
the vet, there's really not much they can do because of her age. She's 13.
Hmm.
So I'm just kind of playing it day by day with her right now.
Right.
So she's
That's about
on,
all you can do. Yeah.
yeah, she's on a pain regiment to try to get her to feeling better. And she's actually still getting up slowly and eating. And so until she
Hmm.
can't do that anymore, it is what it is.
Hmm.
But anywho, that's why she asked that about Reese. um, so your story with this negative entity that you've had, how does that how does that help you now with helping people in the paranormal?
It showed me what I don't want. It actually showed an ugly side of myself, in a way where what I came from to where I am now. And when I say that, I basically am just saying the roughness that I had in my life when I was younger, before I changed my life, and before Christ changed my life. I, I It's a reminder of what could have been, or what could have been if I had not done that. And I believe that I probably wouldn't be here. And it was just one of those things that I always thought that I would die young. After that experience I had, now I keep hearing, no, you got a long way to go, bud. So, yeah, it's a very profound way of thinking when you have that confrontation, and it was so real and it was so intense that it made me realize that, yeah, I may be human, but I'm also spiritual. And that's what really woke up my spirituality, because I knew that there was more to life than just what I was doing.
When you still investigate somewhat, right?
Hmm.
Since then. So do you still come across, and the reason I ask is because I hear this a lot when people say they have attachments and different things, different connections with different spirits. Do you end up contacting that negative entity that was attached to you in your investigations?
No,
Or is it completely
no,
gone?
no. It's not. it's still it's let's put it this way. It's kind of like it's on the outside looking in, and it's always there, but it's not something that can attach itself. Or I've separated that. I put that wall and between that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you got to look at it this way. You know, the lightness and the darkness. You can't have one without the other. Okay, there's a balance to be held, especially when you have to deal with the negative entities or negative energies or frequencies. Same thing with positive energies and frequencies. There has to be a balance. You can't have the good without the bad and vice versa. You're going to experience that. If you had the good only, and this is when, good things happen to me, and, it's kind of, I start thinking, when's the shoe going to drop on the other foot? You know what I mean? Because I'm always wondering, where's the bad in it? So there has to be a balance. You know what I mean? Because it keeps you kind of sane that way, and it's just one of those things where I know that entity is there still, but it's not there that it can influence me in a way anymore like it used to. And it knows that. But it's outside looking in, and it's not anywhere near me. It's just something that knows that, I'm still, producing light for people and helping people and doing other things. I've been jumped by just an angry spirit before. There was a gentleman that some years ago I bought a vehicle, and spirit kept telling me, don't buy this vehicle, don't do it. And I really wanted this vehicle really bad because I was tired of driving what I was driving. I forced it through. So I got this car, and I kind of got a weird feeling, but I didn't care because I really liked this vehicle. And as you know, probably about a month later, the weird things in my vehicle would happen. And like the radio would be turned on to religious stations when I would get in the morning, when I knew that I turned it off. I would always feel like somebody's in the back seat watching me. And I'm like, and I didn't really pay too much attention until one day I was driving to work and I got jumped. This entity jumped me, like basically kind of took me over, and I could feel all the anger, the hatred, the viciousness of this, and it was intense. And I had to stop and pull over at a gas station and say my meditative prayers and get this thing out of me and off of me. And then once I did that, I got basically his download of his whole story, which was he was miserable. He killed himself in that vehicle, and he's stuck in that vehicle. And that is why when Spirit said, don't buy this vehicle, just don't do it, I ignored that. And so he, as far as I know, he's still there. And I basically sold that vehicle. I traded it like probably 6 months after I got it. And he's still in it. And for some reason, he can't get out. Now, if I would have been a little bit farther in my gifts and understanding who I was, I would have tried to help him. I would have tried to, show him the light or do something where he could, accept, his fate or whatever. But the anger and the frustration and the hatred that he was exuberating in that vehicle was like going into a sauna, and the heat is like twice as hot as it is when it's normal. So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
that was a moment that I realized when I look back, and that was a moment saying, okay, if I ever run into something like that, then I'm gonna try, you know. But there's sometimes where when an angry spirit like that doesn't want the help, there's nothing you can really do. Certain people with gifts can help them, but I ran into a couple that they don't want to cross over. They're happy where they're at. And what do? That's just, you know,
Right. You can't
respect
force
that.
them.
Right. You
You
just
can't force
respect
them.
that. We have free will on this side as well as that side. So it's a
When
choice.
you come across people that have these attachments, or maybe a haunting, like have you seen the documentary? I'm sure you have, Demon House. Everyone's seen that documentary. Um, even though I know that's just entertainment, it's probably not real.
Mhm.
But when you come across a case like that, how do you help that particular person that's experiencing that kind of a haunting? And you know, I know that it's not going to be anything like that documentary Demon House. That, you know, that's absolutely
You got to
not.
realize that is TV,
Yeah, it's
and
Hollywood.
that
I knew that.
so
But you do get
um
hauntings though that where the
I
person's
don't.
suppressed.
There are, I was talking with somebody the other day, and I was telling them, you know, I can, drive by a house or a building, and I could say, yeah, that one's haunted, or that's got this. That it's just a normal thing for me to do. Now, there's certain places that I haven't came across. I can't take that back. There have been a few instances where I've come across where somebody contacted me and a friend of mine and wanted us to come out to look at this farmhouse that they purchased. And weird things have been happening, yada, yada, yada. I was like, okay. Well, I also do remote viewing. So I basically remote viewed this house, and this lady was really wanting us to come there and this and that. And I just had this odd, bad feeling about it. And I just wasn't sure. Now, when I remote view, I saw this lady that she walked out of the front door of this farmhouse. I'm like, okay. And right behind her was a huge, I don't want to say demonic, but maybe. I mean, it was huge, but it wasn't attached to her, and it was part of the house. I went nowhere near that place, and come to find out that the lady was trying to contact us months after that and a year after that, and me and my friend Josh said there's just something about that we couldn't do. We did not want to entertain that. There was something about it that spirit basically said, yeah, no, you want to pass that one by. Come about a year after that, year 2 years after that place burnt down.
Which happens a lot to places like
Mm-hmm.
that. End up burning
Right.
down.
Yes.
True.
So, you know, was it supposed to happen that way, or what? I don't know, but there's some places that spirit has been really good to helping me to there was another story where there was, when I first started this, it was probably about 5 years ago when I had my first team, Wisconsin Paranormal Research, and there was a lady up north that was telling me that her house is haunted and this and that, and she's giving details and this and that, and the more she talked about it, the more I was suspect, and I just, something was different. And then she started, she wasn't getting, kind of like when she wasn't getting the response that she wanted, she started bringing her boyfriend in and saying, I think my boyfriend's been possessed, and I think this and that, and he's been doing things to me. And I was like, okay, this is going out of a different realm here. And so I talked to another person, and she was like, another medium, and she was like, yes, there's just something about this house. I just like, I don't understand. So I contacted a friend of mine from California, and and this medium is actually been on Ghost Adventures, and I discussed this with her and told her about the place and this and that, and she said, "This girl she has attachments that wants her to do their bidding. So basically, they want to get you there so that they can hurt you." And that's what I kind of knew. I kind of had that feeling. You know what I mean? So um, I didn't go, and I broke off ties with this person, and just I haven't heard anything from her for years, and which is fine. You know what I mean? So there are negative entities and attachments and things that you know will try to get certain paranormal investigators there because they know that they're open and you know they're vulnerable. So that's why I tell everybody, when you go investigate, you always make sure that you ground yourself and protect yourself, because you don't know what you're walking into, and that's why I don't do private homes anymore. I do businesses every once in a while, but I, like I said, I focus a lot on my shows and talk with people and do walkthroughs and help people get information, other paranormal teams and stuff like that. But yeah, so there are some talking about the paranormal. There are some people out there that their intention is to hurt people, and
Why would
because
they
they
want
think it's
to do that,
they
though?
think it's funny. They think it's a joke. They think it's I've heard other stories of another lady that down in Florida that she had a similar thing where these group of people were confronted by a supposed demon, and she went in there and they didn't know what it was, but they knew what it was, and this medium actually got picked up and thrown down the stairs. And so, and they all laughed, and that's what they wanted. What the negative and the darkness tries to do is, people with bright lights, they want to extinguish that. And so, I go through spiritual battles all the time. And, it's just, you just got to be, you got to have your wits about you. You got to be aware and on guard of that. And that's why I do meditation, and I ground myself, and I, do protections, and, so yeah, it's just the way the world is now. I mean, we need a lot of protection. So yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
go hug a tree. That'll help you. Not kidding. I'm not kidding. I love trees, and I've hugged a tree, and it's an amazing feeling.
Have you
Because
been to the Redwood Forest yet?
I have not. I'm a big Colorado Rocky fan because I love the mountains. To me, that is just that. To me, that's God's playground. I mean, I just think that it's so beautiful, and the energy with the trees and the limestone and the rocks and all that stuff. I just think that it's just,
Annie says that I need some protection, Annie. Annie, you guys, she just had shoulder rotator cuff surgery like I did a couple months ago. And if anyone's ever experienced that, it's a rough surgery. It's the most painful surgery ever.
I've known some people that have had that done.
Yeah, it's quite something. And I've had a lot of surgeries in my lifetime, and that one really took the cake. So, Annie, stick with it. Go to PT. You'll get through it. I promise. It gets better. But anyways, sorry to interrupt you. When you have somebody that approaches you, because you get this a lot in the paranormal, I noticed, the paranormal it attracts people who, like I said in the beginning of the show, something happened to you for you to be interested in the paranormal to begin with. So whether you've lost a loved one, you've been ill, whatever it is, something happened to you. So a lot of times it'll draw people that, I don't want to say, the people that are like depressed. There could be people that are, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of negative influence in the field.
Yes, there is. But it depends on the frequency and what you resonate at. if you have a lower vibration, you're going to feel more of that heat, so to speak. You know what I mean? That's why raising your frequency and raising your vibrational frequency, it will help prevent some of that depression and anger and outbursts and stuff like that. Because the fact that once you have that frequency and that in that higher range, you'll see things differently. You'll look at things differently. You'll speak differently. It's just so you can. I usually can tell a person who has a really low vibration, and they're really it's like picking them out of a crowd, but not really, because the people that are the loudest and the rudest and you know they hate this and they hate that, and that's you have
So
a very
they're
low.
they're always the victim kind of thing.
Yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, and I was just talking with somebody at work about this too. Is and he's a younger kid, and he's there was a reason why I was I was starting to work there with this kid, because when we had this conversation, our frequencies meshed really well, and he's in his 20s, and he's a real spiritual kid, and he agrees with all the stuff that I was saying, and he's like, I never knew about that, and I'm so interested in that. And I said, well, there's a reason that the universe puts people together for certain reasons. So evidently you have a long life of helping people, or of doing something along the lines in the spiritual realm. And he asked me if I meditate, and I said yeah. And I mean, so it's just, we talked about frequency. And what a lot of people don't realize is that we're made up of energy. We are frequency and vibrational frequencies. I mean, that's just, if you ever research what that actually means, go research Nikola Tesla,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that guy, I tell you what, he knew that stuff. And yeah, it's just, you want to be able to have your frequency and your vibration raised. You know what I mean? You want that at a higher level, just because of the fact that it not only makes you more healthier, it makes you more positive. It makes if you are hating life and you're depressed and you're miserable, your vibrational is low, and your frequency is low. Research how to raise that. That will also help. I'm not saying that medication doesn't help, because sometimes for
Mhm.
some people it does, but but
And
yeah,
the same goes for when you come across somebody that has a haunting. A lot of times, often more times than the actual haunting, it's actually their own vibration causing
that are
the negative.
causing it, and they don't realize it.
Mhm.
I've ran into that a couple different times, and when the person's in the room, you could tell, and then when the person leaves, you could tell there's a big difference.
Right.
And it's kind of like telling a person who's can be the nicest person in the world, but you got to tell her the bad news is it's you, you know. And so, but but a lot of it is individual people that are creating this negative, this offshoot of energy. If you ever walk into a building, or let's say an old house, like I can sense pretty much the last, let's say it's 100 years old. I usually can sense 50 or 80 years of it. You know what I mean? I in one fell swoop, and I'll be able to tell this and that. But the one thing that I really will be able to tell, if there's a lot of negative energy there, because of the fact that if somebody was abused there, or somebody it was always in arguments there, or there was a lot of hatred there was a lot of anger, that stuff sticks to walls, especially if it's a wooden house. That will stick to the walls like sap, and it just drips. That can create different offshoots of negative energy that can eventually manifest itself. Emotional discharge that is untreated can manifest into something that people don't understand why their house is haunted or why all these bad things are happening and this and that. It's like, cleanse your house. Get rid of that negative, stagnant emotional discharge or that energy, you know. So that's when people, use sage to, bless the corners of your room or your house. That's a real thing, you know. I mean, there's so many different ways to do that. Hollywood does that too, you know. It's just there's so many different things that people aren't doing that they should be doing.
So I know that it's really popular now for investigators. It's like a Friday night. It's become a Friday night thing, actually, where investigators all get together and they'll have like teams of 30 or more, and they'll go to the most haunted places like prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Gettysburg is one of them, but that's kind of a different haunting. But prisons is one of them with all that anger and that kind of energy that you're talking about, that energy transference that's stuck to the walls.
Mm-hmm.
Is it dangerous for
Very,
people to hang around with this stuff?
very. What a lot of people don't realize too is, especially with prisons, yeah, it's you get a lot of EVPs or you get a lot of this or a lot of that. You know, there's also, like I said, different offshoots of negative energies. And if there's somebody that, let's say that there's somebody that passed away there, that died there, who was a very violent person, and they don't plan on going anywhere, and there's leftover residue, they can just multiply that. I mean, they can just take that, and make it worse. I mean, there's so many different places that can harbor some of that stuff. When a team of 30 people walk into a prison, probably 75% of them are unprotected, or they've had something where, they haven't gotten rid of some negative energy that they, negative thoughts or whatever, they have not taken care of themselves to be able to safeguard themselves. And when these negative entities, and like to say the prisons or whatever, they, people wonder why they get scratched or wonder why they get, bruises, or they get kind of jumped like I did. You know what I mean? They don't understand it, and it's not cool.
Or worse, I've seen people who are drunk that are doing that stuff too. So
There's one in every lot. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, it's just, it's kind of like, being
yeah.
the most popular kid in school isn't always being the most popular kid in school, because that kid in school, really doesn't have anything to show for it except for the scars that he's created, and when you have investigators that want the clicks and the likes and the popularity and the fame and all that stuff, you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're not helping the spirits that you're supposed to help, because this is what we're in it for. We're in it for the
Right.
truth, but we want to be able to help people too, and help spirits on this side. And one of my motto is I help the living and the dead. You know what I mean? So I don't it's really sad. I mean, I have to admit, the way the way the paranormal world is, or the field is kind of turning into, it goes in its highs and lows. I mean, it's like a roller coaster. It goes up, goes down, goes up and down. You know what I mean? So, but my best advice I give to anybody that's wants to do this, or wants to be into the paranormal or investigate or do whatever, pick something that you're drawn to. Pick something that you really like, that resonates with you. And then when you do that, do your research. But keep your circle small. Don't let just any Tom, Dick, or Harry in your circle, because you don't know what they're bringing. They could be bringing something that maybe they have an attachment. It's going to mess up your frequency. It's going to cause issues. It's going to cause... And people don't see that. We have to start thinking more on a spiritual level than we do on a physical level. So
it's very true. And you also have to look at intentions.
Yep.
You know,
That's the
why is
biggest
the
thing.
person in this? What is their intent?
Hmm.
You know, is it
That's what.
just to collect evidence for likes, or
Right.
is it something
Right.
deeper? You know?
Yeah. That's why I tell everybody too when they do investigations. Your intention better be as pure as a white driven snow when you are attending to a haunted location, and you know or you've heard that there's spirits there, and you kneel down on one knee and say thank you for allowing me to enter your home, because it's their home. It's not our home, and we have to show that respect. Your intention has to be of respect. So if your intention is to get likes and popularity and this and that, you're going to get more than you bargained
Yeah.
for.
It's kind of sad because, especially for those that have gifts, like you have gifts as a medium, so
Mhm.
you're called to work with spirit. I firmly
Mhm.
believe this. If you have gifts of sight and can see and can work with spirit, and you're called to work with spirit for a reason.
Mhm.
And I feel
Yeah.
like it's not to be taken lightly. You know,
No.
it's not for television. It's not for money and things like that. And that's what it's become for so many people, and it's just sad, you know.
Right.
So, like I've seen there's a medium out there who is pretty popular. He had a YouTube channel for a while, and on the YouTube channel he was about um there was a radio, like a news, it was a news story. I'm sorry, it was a news story that came out about this lady being oppressed, and she was in the hospital because she was saying she was demon possessed, whatever it was. And he gets on her and he says, "Oh, I would be glad to help this person as long as that, but I would want to have, I would only do it if I was allowed to have my camera crew with me to document it." And I just thought, you're
That's
definitely
yeah,
in
right.
this
That's
for wrong
right. That
reason.
that is
You know,
that's
so
that's a different intention.
right. That's
I mean, that it's like
it
showing
though.
your cards. It's like it's playing a game of poker, and you've got your cards turned around
Right,
where everybody
exactly.
can see them. And yeah, so
That's kind
I
of what you get
understand.
on normal
Yeah,
right now. But I think
right.
that's
And right, but I understand people are trying to make a living. I get that. Okay,
I get that
but
too, but
but man, if you have to stop and think, why am I really doing this? And it's not natural for you, then maybe you need to really think about that.
yeah. I
You
mean, surely
know?
you can find another way to make money, you know.
Mhm. Right.
So,
Right. And I'm not saying that
anyway.
it's bad for people that are, mediums who are trying to make money or doing whatever, but I mean, if that's what you're into, that's what you're doing, but help people. Don't just do it for money. Don't do it just for the likes. Don't do it for popularity. Don't do it because you want to help this person. That's the bottom line. If you can't answer that, why are you doing what you're doing? And you can have to be honest with yourself. And if the person says, "Oh, this is a living that I make," then you're in the wrong business.
Mhm.
If you
Yeah,
say,
that's
"I
they
want to
just
help people," that's the difference.
there, you know, there is an exchange for doing work, you know. So there is, if you know, if I was to do a reading for you, and you would pay me X amount of dollars, that's kind of an exchange, but I don't expect to work with spirit for a living to be rich or anything like that. You know what I mean? I don't there's a
There are
difference.
people out
I
there
don't know.
I mean, they're everywhere. I call them armchair mediums.
I
Seriously,
don't
I've ran
know.
into quite a few of them. And it's just it is what it is, and you just kind of. But that's when I said that stay in your own circle, stay in a small circle, keep the ones that you resonate with, keep them in your circle. People that do not resonate with you will only cause you more grief and will only disrupt your circle. I keep my circle small. I tried it where it was big. I tried to include everybody, and then I realized that it was a circus, and I'm like, no,
Mhm.
I can't do that anymore.
I kind of learned the hard way on that too. I got
Hmm.
burned by some
Yeah, it,
people.
it does. Yeah, I have to, and it
Mhm.
sucks, but those are
That's
lessons we learn.
Yep.
Hmm.
So what's next for you? Do you have any projects that you're working on?
Um, I have a new podcast, two of them actually. Um, the one I'm producing, and then one I'm going to be another host on. The one I'm producing is with um, JJ Hurd. His name is Wisdom. He's on TikTok. He's created a podcast called the Undead Men Podcast. I just finished up some of the intros media for that, and hopefully I'll be able to get his first episode out within the next week. It'll be pre-recorded so I can edit it and do what I need to do for it and whatnot. But JJ Hurd Wisdom on TikTok, he's really good. He talks a lot of it about Atlantis, um, Egypt. Yeah, so I mean, it's just the cosmos. I mean, he's kind of way out there with some of that stuff, and so I was blessed when I he wanted me to be a part of it, and I just felt Spirit said that I'd be more of a producer side of it, that I can just produce it for him while he does that. And there's the other podcast that we're gonna have is called True North Podcast, and it's everything north. It's everything positive.
I like
And
that. I like
yeah, um, he's going to be JJ Hurd, and Wisdom is going to be a host with me and Elizabeth Merriquin, who's another medium who's been a good friend of mine for years, and we're going to talk positive and talk about the positive things in life and the spiritual positive and all those things, and to be able to reach out to people and help people,
Yeah,
and
be able to grow.
yeah, and let people know that there's options out there for them, and help them to understand the research and how important that is. It's just so True North podcast is it's just one of those things that I think that really is going to start to take shape here within the next month. But yeah, it's just been I've been busy, and I'm going to be doing. Somebody said I need to make some money doing my intros and my outros. So I've been working on my editing for a long time, and people have been seeing my editing and saying, why aren't you making any money on this? And it's like, well, it's something that I do because I enjoy doing it. But I also am producing a lot of more um, media stuff. And so I kind of thought maybe it's time I do get paid to do it, and it's something that maybe I want to make professional, you know. So it's a thought, but other than that, and I've just been working and uh, ed- yeah. Every once in a while, I'll do a walkthrough, a video or a phone call walkthrough with my friend Kelly Schaefer, and down in Tennessee with the K2 Paranormal Research and whatever investigation they've got going on.
Well,
So yeah,
Jay, thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
no, it's my pleasure. This is awesome.
So you've been listening to the Gateway Podcast, broadcast live from 107.7 FM New Orleans. Next week, I think it's a Bigfoot man coming on. So stay tuned for that, and I will see you all soon.